Being a police officer is sometimes an odd job. Sometimes you come across people that you know are in need of dire help. And what's worse, you sometimes encounter people that need your help, but you don't know how to help them. You are yourself helpless. Throughout my career as a police officer, I've been through different situations. I've seen buildings catch on fire because of a tiny mistake and the most ferocious crimes, but nothing comes close to what happened this one night. It's been quite some time since this event happened, but I still can't shake the thought of it. Was it all I saw, or is there more left to be discovered? Being a cop, we assume that we've been through enough terrible situations to be able to tackle any situation coming towards us. Still, the truth is that I was never ready for what I experienced that night. The thought of what I saw still keeps me up at night, and the seize it has on me is something I wouldn't want anyone to go through. It was in the middle of summer, and I was driving around the outskirts of town. I was assigned to do such a drive every week, which was usually on Friday, but this week I had to go on a Wednesday. Dense forests and fields mainly surrounded our town, so my main task was looking out for trespassers or intruders. I was mostly done when I spotted my friend's truck on the right side of the road. I immediately recognized it because of the police logo on its rear mirror. I parked beside the truck and spotted my friend standing right in front of the truck, staring blankly into the field. I furrowed my brow in confusion as I walked up to him. "What's up, dude?" I asked. He said nothing at first, but then spoke. "I accidentally hit an animal, and it ran into the fields." His eyes were still fixed on the fields ahead. I glanced at the bumper and my eyes went wide because there was no way an animal could do that kind of damage. And even if it did, it was impossible to believe that it survived such a fierce hit and had enough strength to run away. I looked back at my friend to confirm that it was really an animal. He nodded in response and then said, "It was huge. I couldn't see its face because it ran away." Then he turned to face me. It was pretty clear that he was traumatized by whatever had happened. His face was washed white, and there was some kind of remorse mixed with horror in his eyes. I patted his shoulder to calm him down and said I would look in the forest to see if there were injured animals over there. Although I believed his words, a part of me was still saying that he had misunderstood something. Regardless of my intuition, I walked into the dense forest, hoping I would see an injured dog or bear, but the matter was much more complicated than I thought. After walking around for 5 minutes in the deep forest, I stopped to look around, but there was nothing to be seen. I was about to turn back to my car when something on my left shifted. I immediately pointed my flashlight in that direction, and even though I didn't get to see much, I saw something run further in the same direction. I didn't bother following it because, after all, I was standing in the middle of a deep forest, and going any further into those fathomless bushes would be like inviting my own death. So instead, I walked back to my friend. He was still standing at the same spot, looking into his surroundings with nothing but worry in his eyes. As far as I knew, it was pretty uncharacteristic of him to stress so much over harming an animal, because he didn't really like animals. I asked him if he called a tow truck or the station for any assistance. He just shook his head. I went back to my car and called the tow truck to help us out of the situation. It was getting late and pretty dark, and we needed to get out of there as soon as possible. But my friend couldn't snap out of his trance for some reason. I stood beside him, looking around for any clues about his pitiless worry. A few minutes passed and there was nothing to be seen. Then I noticed something towards my right. I shone my flashlight toward it, and what I saw next made my stomach turn. My eyes widened as I saw a huge creature sitting right before us. And when I say huge, I mean it was enormous. I was wrong to think that my friend had hit a bear or a dog, because this thing was something I'd never seen or heard before. "What the hell is that thing?" I asked. "Told you, man, it's weird," my friend replied. Suddenly we heard a weeping sound, and it was loud. It sounded like a dog that had been deeply wounded. I took a step back as I was terrified of what I saw. The creature was sitting with its back facing to us. It lifted its left paw and started licking it. And then we saw blood dripping from the paw. And it wasn't just ordinary blood. It was shiny and silver in color. The flow was quick and heavy, and soon it was spilling onto the roadway. The weeping got louder, and my friend gasped in terror. I took another step back, but then realized I stepped on a pile of foliage. The creature immediately dropped its paw and stood on its hind legs. It turned to face us, and that's when I had the most horrifying view of my life. Its face was completely distorted, and it looked kind of like a dog. Its eyes were bloodshot red and filled with angst, and the expression was a mix of anger and panic. It smelled like a rotten corpse. I wanted to scream, but I didn't know what had taken over me. I just stood there looking into its eyes. It was as if its eyes had some kind of magnetic force because I couldn't break eye contact. Suddenly, the creature screeched. It was something I had never heard before. It was an ear-piercing scream which made me fall to my knees. Terrified by the situation, my friend started sprinting towards the field. Before I could call him back, the creature started walking towards him, and that's when I knew things had gotten worse. I tried looking for something to divert its attention or scare it away, but nothing was strong enough to affect that monster that was in front of me. While I was trying to think of what to do, the tow truck arrived. The siren made the creature leap back into the thick forest. I called my friend back and took him to my vehicle to calm him down. It had been a few seconds, and then we heard the weeping again. And then it growled as if in pain. We stayed in the truck, not daring to look outside because we didn't know what might be waiting for us. The truck was towed away within 10 minutes. My friend and I were questioned about what had happened, but we didn't tell them about what we saw. Instead, my friend said that he hit an animal and it disappeared into the forest. I supported this statement. His car insurance also went to look around the forest, but there were no wailing or groaning sounds then. Once everything was cleared up, we made our way back to the station. I was worried about reporting to the chief what had happened, but it turned out that we weren't the only ones who had encountered the mysterious creature. Apparently, different officers had seen it at different times. My friend took a few days off from work to recover from the incident, but he could never escape the thoughts of it. He still has nightmares about that night, standing on the same road with his hands covered in silver blood, and even worse, being devoured by the same creepy creature. We don't talk about it anymore, but I can sense the tension growing on his face whenever someone mentions the forest. I still take weekly drives around the town, but now the thought of coming in contact with that animal makes chills run down my spine.